Chapter 10. It has been a year since I received a large sum of money from the head and was hired as an escort warrior. There wasn't much work. During their time as an escort, no one of great talent or courage targeted a person of the criminal affairs, one of the 6 departments. When the escort was a member of a different Mumu group, there wasn't a single day without tension. However, those days ended once he was hired as an escort for this man. The continuation of boredom. It has been a quiet year. Just by staying beside that person, his salary was piling up. It was a time when he was gripped by the pressure to show and prove himself. After realizing that his senses were gradually being dulled because of the long peace, he found a situation worthy of intervening. The young master was suffering at the hands of someone. How much pressure was the other one applying for the young master to wriggle? It's time to pay for the graces I was shown. The escort warrior thought that he had seized the opportunity to show himself. Now, when the family members of the head gather, it would be a great opportunity for him to help and increase the trust they have in him. This bastard, how dare you act so rudely to the young master? With a shout, the escort warrior moved towards Mumu. As a former native of a Mumu group, his movements were fast enough to be compared to lightning in the eyes of ordinary people. Oh, at that, the people around were amazed. He seems to be the same age as the young master. Do-pyung's lips turned into a smile. He was lucky. Kids of that age couldn't be his opponent as he was strong. Such young ones can be suppressed at once, but he moved around incessantly. It was to distract him and make himself look cool as a martial artist. Should I take him down now? Seeing that the opponent was a kid, he couldn't figure out where he moved. Whip. Oh? Mumu's eyes moved, and the place where Mumu looked were where the escort warrior was moving. In an instant, Do-pyung felt weird. What? Is he able to follow my movements? He was flustered. As a native of an assassination group, he knew that he had skills better than first-rate warriors, but a kid was able to see him. Something felt creepy about it. Maybe even if he was a kid, the kid had excellent eyesight. In that case, it seemed like he had to stop moving around so much and subdue the kid at once. So he moved his body to catch the chance. Look! Stop it now! This kid isn't dangerous! Mumu's eyes turned to his father, Yu-yeop-kyung, who screamed. Do-pyung didn't miss the chance. Now! Do-pyung moved for Mumu's back, which was facing him, to show off his skills. Engraving punishment! It was a technique that instantly subdues the opponent from behind and breaks their neck at the same time. But this time, the escort intended to grab the neck instead of breaking it. At the same time as he moved to hold the right arm of the kid, who was grabbing his young master's hand, he went for the neck. But, the arm wasn't breaking. The part where he held the arm was hard, like an old tree which wasn't going to fall. He didn't expect that the kid was an expert in body training. But training the neck wasn't an easy task. Grab. He grabbed it and tried to threaten him. Push. What is this? It was his first time seeing this. The blood vessels from the ribs to the shoulder blades were standing up, and the enormous neck muscles made it hard to grab. No, he wasn't able to grab them properly. How? How can one train their neck like this? It was then Mumu asked, "Why are you touching another person's neck?" Touch? He grabbed his neck, hoping that the kid would gasp for air, but the kid thought he was touching it. It was unusual. Huh? At that moment, Mumu grabbed the wrist of the escort, who was struggling to grab Mumu's neck, and applied force to the hand. Crack! A shrill scream erupted from the escort warrior. An unbelievable power. All of a sudden, like the son of the master, the escort's body, too, was in pain and wriggling. The people around who were expecting something couldn't help but feel disappointed. No one else could do anything more. The escort who talked big about himself was on his knees in front of a 17-year-old boy. Even the head, Mo-yun, was stunned. I paid so much for him. He knew that it wasn't worth it to pay such a huge sum for the escort. Still, since he belonged to an assassination group, he thought that the escort would show something. But what kind of thing was he seeing? Mo-yun's eyes narrowed. Or is that kid ridiculously strong? The Minister of Criminal Affairs looked at Mumu. At that moment, Yu-yeop-kyung yelled, "Mumu, release the hand of the young master right now. He is the son of this man." And then he hurriedly fell on his knees and bowed to Mo-yun. "Lord, My son has only lived in the mountains, so his social skills are poor. Please punish me as the father and forgive my son." Mumu frowned, seeing his father act like that. As he didn't want to trouble his father, he let go of the hands he was holding. Mo Il-saw and even the escort who were released crouched and gasped for air. Mo Il-saw's hand was red and swollen. It looked like it was broken, and the kid who found his father shook in pain. "Oh, my hand! I'm dying! I'm dying!" Mo Il-saw rolled on the floor more and complained of the pain. Rather than showing people that it was just his hand that hurt, he wanted to pretend that he was hurt everywhere to save his face. "This is crazy," Yeop-kyung thought. Knowing Mumu's personality, he knew that there was no way Mumu would have approached his son of the head. Something which wasn't being said had happened, and he wasn't sure if the young master was really hurt or was just trying to instigate his father. And his prediction came true. "Yu Hak-jung, what on earth did your son—" "Father!" At that moment, a different voice was heard. All eyes turned to one girl. The name of that one girl was Mo Il-hwa, the only female child of Mo Yun, the one he cherished. My pretty daughter was here?" "Father, Il-hwa is scared, so don't be angry." Mo Yun frowned at his daughter's words. He was someone who knew about her voice and attitude better than anyone else, but this was the first time that she was talking so sweetly and playing aegyo. He wasn't sure if it was because of the presence of new people in the home, but it was lovely that he got to see it. "Oh my daughter. Daddy isn't angry at all." "Really?" "Of course. Daddy doesn't know how to get angry in front of his sweet daughter." Mo Il-saw glared at his sister, who was trying to calm their father, and grabbed his hand and complained even louder. "Oh, father, I think I will die." Mo Yun frowned at that again. His anger did subside a little because of his daughter's aegyo, which he hadn't seen in a long time, but he couldn't let this pass. Mo Il-hwa pointed to her brother and said, "Father, all of this was brought on by my brother." "You mean he started it?" "It was like my brother was trying to test out how strong that person was, and he deliberately went over and asked for a handshake, and this is how that turned out." "Handshake?" "You know, that thing, the greetings of Westerners." "Ah." Mo Yun, who understood what his daughter was saying, looked at his son. "You." Mo Il-saw, who was trying to avoid being seen negatively, glared at his sister. But it was too late. His father, who was obsessed with Mo Il-hwa, wouldn't listen to him anymore. Mo Yun was so angry that he looked at his son as he walked closer to him and asked, "Is that true?" Father, I asked if that was true. That is because he is Yu Jin-sung's brother, so I tried to confirm if he was great." "So you asked for a handshake?" "Well, I was just trying to take it easy, but this guy—" Thud. Before he could finish speaking, Mo Yun mercilessly smashed his son's head with his fist. Father! His father's fist didn't hurt much, as his father didn't learn martial arts, but he could imagine just how angry his father was, as he wasn't the kind to use his hands in front of other people. "Believing that you are a nice martial artist, I firmly told you to not act recklessly. But you do this?" Father, but—" "Don't speak. You're putting a lot of pressure on your father, who is in the position of a prestigious high noble." At those words, Mo Il-saw bowed his head. Leaving the kid, Mo Yun spoke to Yu Yeop-kyung, who was still on his knees. "Yu Hak-jung, forgive me. It wasn't you who made the mistake. It was me." It was surprising how the high noble admitted it. To that, Yu Yeop-kyung said, "No, my lord. My son didn't do the right thing either. I will punish and teach my son, so I hope that you don't feel uncomfortable." "Lord." Yu Yeop-kyung looked at Mo Yun. He felt so respected at the words of the noble who showed fairness. At that time, Mo Yun's daughter, Mo Il-hwa, approached and greeted him. "I'm the daughter, Mo Il-hwa. I greet Yu Hak-jung." The fact that he had such a daughter by his side is a true blessing to the Lord. Thanks to her, Yu Yeop-kyung was able to get out of the embarrassing situation. "Ah, no." Mo Il-hwa, who was flustered by the words, bowed her head. Seeing that, Yu Yeop-kyung smiled and said, "I feel so jealous right now. I wish I had a daughter like this." "You're really too much, sir." The warm atmosphere was back again. Mo Il-hwa bowed her head as she smiled. "Just as I planned." It was worthwhile to sell her brother out. How could she let her brother act cheap in front of someone she was planning to make into her father-in-law? With her head bowed, she glanced at Mumu. She actually thought that he was Yu Jin-hyuk, the younger brother of Yu Jin-sung, whom she wanted to marry, but she heard that this one was the adopted son, Mumu. Thanks to my brother, my work here is done. She was willing to be close to Yoo Jin-hyuk as she would enter his family in the future, but if it was the adoptive son, she didn't have to please him. In the end, stepchildren are nothing but stepchildren. Mo-yoon opened his mouth. Well, it seems like your adoptive son also has great competence. Huh? What do you? Your second son and your adoptive son will work together to take care of my sweet daughter so that nothing happens in the Heavenly Martial Arts Academy. At those words, Yoo Yeop-kyung went stiff. He was fine with sending his second son, but he had no intention of sending Mumu to that place, so he spoke very carefully. Lord, my son Mumu in that place called Heavenly... Before Yoo Yeop-kyung could even finish speaking, Mo-yoon pointed his finger at his son and said, How can my son pass the entrance exam of the academy with his hands like that? It breaks my heart as a father to think that my weak and fragile daughter will have to survive in a place like that without her brother. Ah, but I have no doubts that your sons will watch over her and take care of her, right? His tone was very thin. I was fooled. Mo-yoon didn't like backing down. Even if his son was hurt, he thought that it was strange how his son's hands were so injured. Yoo Yeop-kyung looked at Mumu. Son, what do you plan on doing? Now, he suddenly had to go to a place called the Heavenly Martial Arts Academy. Chapter 11. I'm really sorry. It would have been better if I hadn't asked to bring Mumu along. Shortly after leaving the manor, Oh-ji-gang apologized because it felt like it was all his fault. At that, Yoo Yeop-kyung shook his head. No, if we want to find out who is at fault, then it will be my first son who graduated from the academy. Yoo Yeop-kyung didn't think much about what happened. What was happening had to happen. It wasn't like he would get a chance to redo things because he regretted it, so dwelling on it didn't seem good. Still, Oh-ji-gang spoke. Still, since the Lord said that he would support the second son in Mumu's education, it doesn't seem like a bad condition. Yes, but I wonder if Mumu is okay with it. He was concerned. A child who lived alone with him in exile. What happened inside the manor was because of his immature son, and he was worried whether or not Mumu, who hadn't interacted with a lot of people, would be able to adapt in the academy or not. Don't worry too much. Isn't Mumu the most innocent and kind kid? He's kind, but he's also stubborn. He was sure of that. Mumu was training his body in secret. When he looked at Mumu, Mumu looked elsewhere. This kid. He was grown, and a smart one. Seeing Yoo Yeop-kyung becoming a little annoyed, Oh-ji-gang said, Actually, what happened was wrong and unintentional, but I don't think it's bad for Mumu to enter the academy. What do you mean? Isn't Mumu 17 now? After a while, he will be a man, and it will be impossible for him to grow up in your arms forever. Mumu pouted at those words. I can live with my father for the rest of my life. Ah, this kid, really. The kid really seemed to like his father a lot. At that, Oh-ji-gang stroked Mumu's head and said, I think going to the academy is a good opportunity for Mumu as well. You will be able to see things you haven't, interact with your peers, and learn social skills. All those words were correct. In order to fill what was lacking, Mumu had to enter. And to learn stuff, an academy was the best place for Mumu. But the Heavenly Martial Arts Academy is for Mudim warriors. What about it? How can he even get into that place when he never learned martial arts or anything related to it? At Yoo Yeop-kyung's words, Oh-ji-gang frowned while looking at Mumu and said, In the past, I would have thought so too. However, after seeing Mumu deal with that child and the escort warrior, if this kid doesn't meet the qualifications of the academy, then who can? No, Dad. Even the Lord seems to have high hopes for Mumu. At those words, Yoo Yeop-kyung touched his forehead. He was sure that the man in his dream told him to not let Mumu become any stronger. But why was the kid getting stronger and stronger? Was it really a body naturally born with talent? But the man in the dream asked him to raise the child in a normal way. I don't know what is right. And if I had to, I'd rather send him to a regular school. He thought that it would be better to send Mumu to a regular school, but when he thought about it, despite the pardon, he couldn't get back to his normal life. It was a mistake. He should have refused, as Mumu was an adopted son. Then, he would have been able to send him to a general school. Even if he was an adopted son, the only way for an adopted son to get accepted by the academy is if they were registered in the family registry. The adoption of... No, Mumu doesn't have to be bound by those chains. Yeopkyung shook his head, not because the child was adopted, but because Mumu had been by his side all this time, so he wanted the child to live in his life in freedom. Son, yes, you can live your life the way you want to. If you don't want to go to the Heavenly Martial Arts Academy, then you don't have to. I'll go. If you're saying that for the sake of your father, I heard that it's a place which teaches one to train their body, so I'll go. Do you mean it? Yes, and I'm curious about that friend thing too. At Mumu's words, Yeopkyung had a sad expression. Right, if that was the reason, he couldn't say no. If one day he was to grow old and turn into a handful of dirt, he wanted someone to be besides Mumu. In the end, Yeopkyung accepted it. That was when Mumu asked, "What do I call father's family when we get home?" Huh? The topic suddenly changed. Yeopkyung frowned at Mumu's question and then asked, "You will call mother as mother and brother as brother." Ah, Jinhyuk is a bit tough. Since the both of you are the same age, you can be friends. A quick conclusion. At that, Mumu exhaled and said, "I saw it in a book that illegitimate or adopted children are hated by their stepmothers and are not treated as siblings, so they say not to expect any kind of familial love." Yeopkyung was speechless. Which book said that? It was absurd, so he looked at Oji Gang, who was avoiding his gaze. It was you. The culprit was caught, giving such a strange book to a child and causing stress. He was afraid that Mumu was bored in exile, so as a nice man, he would occasionally give him books. On the other hand, however, it was true. Will his wife and sons treat Mumu well without prejudice? The home of Yeopkyung. There, a few people were busy preparing something. The delicious smell which tickled noses was everywhere. In the yard, a middle-aged woman was leading the preparations. She was Yeopkyung's wife, Jang Yeon-hye. She couldn't hide her joy at the return of her husband 17 years later. She wanted to give him a nice welcome home, so she bought a hen and beef to cook for him. Now then, the master is coming soon, so let's hurry. Yes, my lady. There was a boy who was looking at her. The boy looked like a younger version of Yeopkyung. It was the second child, Yoo Jin-hyuk. Mother. He hadn't seen his mother act like this in a long time. The first time he saw her like this was when his brother got second position in the academy, and the second time was when he cleared his father's name, and this was the third time. He didn't dislike the constant laughter, but now, I don't feel good for some reason. He was just an infant when his father was sent into exile, so he didn't even know his face. He wondered if they would bond when he met his father, whose face he didn't even know. How will I feel when we meet? At the same time, he was curious. Before his brother removed his father's bad name, he hated the one called his father. He cursed him every night, wondering what he had done to leave the family and go into exile, and for the family to be called a sinner's family. But that was because he was too young. Now that his older brother cleared his father's name, he was able to understand things a little. Your father is a truly wonderful man. When you meet father, you will like him too. His mother and brother would say such things, but they couldn't say what his good points were. They would speak abstractly like he was a caring husband and a good father. So a caring husband leaves their home and abandons his children for someone else's. Is that what a good father is? No matter how he thought about it, his father looked like a flawed person. It was then his mother approached him. Jinhyuk, mother, what is with that face? She saw her son, who seemed quieter than usual. She knew how he felt. To her, Yoo Jin-hyuk said, I don't know. I don't know if I should rejoice or not. Again with that. He's your father. Yes, I know. It doesn't make sense to say that to me when I don't even remember his face. But he didn't say that out loud. His mother, who understood what was going on, hugged her son and said, When you see your father, you will fall in love with him. So don't complicate your thoughts with this and that. Then what about the adopted one? Huh? Lady Zhang's expression slightly changed at the mention of the adopted one. She too was upset to hear that her husband had taken up a child. There was no woman who wouldn't find it strange that their exiled husband suddenly started raising a child. At first, she had all sorts of thoughts. Maybe out of sympathy? Since then, all kinds of thoughts had arisen, but they never last long. She knew that her husband wasn't the kind to do the things she was thinking about. She thought that he took the child out of pity. Behave! If it's true, then that person is this mother's child and your brother. Yoo Jin-hyuk sighed at those words. His mother was a soft person when it came to his father, despite being strict about her kid's education. This mother will try to do her best, so Jin-hyuk, can you do your best too? I don't know. What if that son treats you like a stepmother and then treats me harshly because I'm the biological son? What? Jin-hyuk, how can you think so negatively when nothing has happened at all? Adopted or illegitimate children are always greedy, so it's said that they need to be strictly educated from the beginning so they don't look down on us. I'm afraid mother will be hurt because of your nature. At those words, Lady Jong asked, Where the hell did you hear that from? It was written in a book. Ah. At those words, she rubbed her forehead. She wondered where her son had gotten such a book. And now it was clear. That was when an old man at the entrance ran towards her. Lady, the master is back. Chapter 12. It had been over 17 years since they were separated because of the exile. Although the couple were apart for a long time, the moment they met each other, they couldn't help but be affectionate. Lee Yup-kyung and his wife hugged each other and wept. They waited so long for the day to come. Wife. My husband. The workers couldn't help but be moved by such a sight. Even Oh Ji-gang, who was an outsider, was so moved that his eyes became red. He must really like her. Even Yoo Jin-hyuk had no choice but to admit it. How much the existence of his father meant to his mother. Seeing that, he thought that if his father was by their side, his mother would no longer suffer. But, Mumu? The moment he saw the kid with an unusual name, a strange feeling of rejection arose. He hated him so much, and when he heard that he raised that child in the forest during exile for 17 years, something unpleasant crept in. Hello. Mumu looked at him and waved his hands. Yoo Jin-hyuk, who had a preconceived notion, turned his head away. I think the book was right. Mumu scratched his head, feeling shy. After such a thrilling event, they went to have their meal. Oh Ji-gang was asked to come eat with them, but he refused and left saying that he didn't want to interfere with the meal a family was having after a long time. Whoa! It was no exaggeration to say that the meal was more like a party. For Mumu, who preferred grilled meat, this table was the best. Simple-minded. Yoo Jin-hyuk clicked his tongue seeing Mumu. Of course, he too hadn't seen such an extravagant table, but he wouldn't cheer and look surprised. Is this oyster sauce? The meat is so tender. Ah, it was marinated and then boiled. Dried fish? This is my first time seeing fish. It seemed like it was true that he only lived in the mountains. As Mumu was laughing, Jin-hyuk looked at his mother. Somehow, his mother had a sad expression as she looked at Mumu. She was a little awkward, but as food worked as the medium, it seemed like his mother liked Mumu. And on the other hand, she seemed a bit sad that Mumu was unaware of such things. Grip. Jin-hyuk's hand, which was holding the chopsticks, gripped him harder. She was his mother. While looking at Mumu's face, the uncomfortable feeling was now turning into envy. And with that, the meal ended. The empty bowls were removed from the table, and teacups were placed. This feels like a dream come true. My wife. For me too, husband. The couple would hold hands every now and then to express their affection, something like trying to fill the long gap. They drank tea and talked about many things that happened. As they unraveled each story to fill the gaps which had been left open for 17 years, they didn't even realize that the sun was setting. It would have been great if Jin-sung was here today. He's a child who works for the nation now. It's okay, my wife. The first child was on a mission to inspect the Shaanxi province. Since the mission was going to take at least 3 months, it seemed like he wouldn't be able to meet his father right now. While listening to the conversation, Yoo Jin-hyuk drank 5 cups of tea. I'm bored. The two of them were happy, but not him. It was terribly boring to listen to the things which happened in exile and stories about him and his brother. Mumu lifting firewood. Boring. Listening to his father, it seemed like Mumu had a lot of strength. What was so great about carrying weight? It was something he hadn't done before, but after learning martial arts, he was able to do a lot of things. What? Well, for ordinary people who haven't learned martial arts, these trivial things may be great ones. Although the family was now reborn as a family of warriors, his father's thoughts haven't escaped from his time as a scholar. Will his father be able to adapt to the changing world? In the meantime, the conversation came to the current situation. But my wife, did you say that our Jinhyuk will join the Heavenly Martial Arts Academy? Yu Yeop-kyung looked at the second child and asked. To that, Lady Jang replied with a smile. Well, the 3 teachers who taught Jinsung told me to send Jinhyuk to the same academy as he had the same talent as his brother. Huh, is that so? Who would have known that our family would have 2 warriors, a family which had no talent other than teaching? Yu Yeop-kyung was emotional. His children were exceptional. After all, it wasn't like graduating from that academy was an easy task, and to get a high-ranking official position was no easy feat either. He looked at his son and said, Son, I'm not ashamed to admit that I did nothing for you as a father since I was in exile, but I'm really grateful that you have grown up so well. Yu Jinhyuk, who was bored, looked at his father. He was curious about what kind of person his father was, but he never thought that his father would be so concerned about him. It was just a few words, but his father didn't seem like a bad person. Father. Despite trying to deny it, his lips twitched into a smile. It was right about when he was about to feel better, unexpected words came from his father's mouth. We're lucky, so lucky. All my sons will be enlisted in that academy. Oh my, what do you mean? This wasn't something I expected, but there's something I need to ask of Mumu and Jinhyuk. Yu Yeop-kyung talked about what happened during the day. The incident that happened and what caused Mumu to join the academy. Lady Jang was shocked. Are you saying that he asked our sons to take care of his daughter? Exactly. I can't show my face to you or our sons for accepting that. At that, Lady Jang shook her head and said something to Yu Yeop-kyung. What do you mean, husband? Wife, why are you laughing like that? Where could we find such a good opportunity? Opportunity? He was asking for our kids for the sake of his daughter. If we accept, won't this cause a good relationship between us and their family? Yes, but... Yu Yeop-kyung never thought of it that way. Hearing that, he thought that it was a good opportunity. After all, his wife would always do this. Husband, your dignity is good and so is your morality, but please make connections and communicate with various officials. You never know when we might need their strength. As a woman of a prestigious family, she had insight. Which was why she would tell him to create a network. Each time he would insist that if he fulfilled his duties as a scholar and followed his morals, wealth and fame would come. In the end, he was wrong. When she seemed excited, he asked her again, Are you really fine with this? I am. Our Jinhyuk is blessed. Lady Jang was truly delighted by it. If things were done well, their relationship with them would bear fruit, so she had no reason to refuse it. However, unlike her, Jinhyuk didn't seem happy. Jinhyuk? At her question, he looked at Mumu and said, Didn't you say that Mumu, will also enter the academy with me? Yes, Jinhyuk. It was his father who answered. At that, Jinhyuk couldn't understand. I heard that Mumu didn't learn martial arts, which is why I'm worried about this. You shouldn't be worrying about that. He could get hurt, and our family might be disgraced in the entrance exam. Yu Yeop-kyung frowned at those words. Disgrace the family? What do you mean? Yu Jinhyuk answered. Our family has risen to the status of a prestigious warrior family, which is why the academy wants us. And I did my best to practice my martial arts so that I don't dishonor my brother and my family. He showed his palm. It was full of calluses, traces of how hard he worked. Jinhyuk, this kid. Yu Yeop-kyung was moved by his son's efforts. While he was in exile, his sons worked hard for the sake of the family. He was deeply moved by them. And Jinhyuk continued, But what will a person who hasn't even trained in martial arts achieve if they take the entrance exam? He may fail. He may get hurt along the way, and our family will be disgraced for trying to enlist someone who doesn't even know the basics. He spoke as calmly as possible, but his voice was failing him. Did you even hear what I said till now? That place isn't somewhere that a person without the basics of martial arts can enter. Literally, the academy is a place where the outstanding ones are gathered and taught. So if martial arts isn't learned, it can't be entered? At Mumu's innocent question, Jin-hyuk was taken aback. The guy knew nothing. Nothing. He was a village boy who only knew about the mountains, and it didn't seem like words would clear his doubts. Jin-hyuk got up from his seat. Jin-hyuk, what are you doing? Lady Jang felt like things weren't going in the right direction. Jin-hyuk stood in the empty place and said, Father and Mumu don't seem to know about the world, so I will teach them. Mumu, stand in front of me. Jin-hyuk, stop. Your father understands what you're talking about. No, you don't understand it at all. Come here. I'm full. What a hassle. In the end, Mumu got up from his seat and walked in front of Jin-hyuk. Jin-hyuk clicked his tongue at the reckless attitude and drew a circle around himself. Then he concentrated his internal energy at the top of his toe. Sir. A circle was drawn on the ground. Jin-hyuk, who drew it, pointed to Mumu and said, I'll teach you about what martial arts are. Make me take one step out of this circle. You mean I should push you? Yes, and if you can't do that, you don't have the rights to enter that academy. The couple was worried that the kids would start fighting, but were relieved when they weren't. He was trying to show what Mumu couldn't understand. But would it be possible to stay in the circle, which was only one shoulder width wide? To him, Lady Jang said, Husband, you will see something amazing. Amazing? I was surprised by the talent and skills shown by that teacher, so asked him to teach Jin-sung and Jin-hyuk. She still remembered it. A slender man, who was said to be one of the 3 heads of the martial arts school he went to, drew a circle and stood on one leg, and she witnessed the strange sight of him standing despite others trying to push him away. And Jin-hyuk seemed to be trying to show that same thing. But although she didn't say it, she agreed with her son. It wouldn't be possible for an ordinary person who wasn't trained in even the basic martial arts to enter that place, which was full of martial arts warriors. I just have to get you out of the circle? Yes, use your hands and feet, but I will still be here. Yu Jin-hyuk folded his arms and said, It felt like a waste of talent to take on someone who never even learned what martial arts are, but it felt like showing it to Mumu would be more effective than explaining it. The mystery of the 4-way foot extreme weight, a secret taught to him by Jo Il-rang, one of his 3 teachers, a high-level art which puts power on the feet. Though he couldn't do what that man showed, Jin-hyuk believed that what he could do was enough to show Mumu the difference. You said that all I have to do is move you out. Do whatever you want, Jin-hyuk answered. Mumu stepped forward and placed his hand on Jin-hyuk's chest and tried to push him. His force was dispersed by the technique. The body didn't move. Yu Yeop-kyung was surprised. He withstood Mumu's strength. Then the kid was amazing. Mumu too was shocked. Oh, this is amazing. You saw it. This is the martial arts. May I put more strength? Huh? Mumu rolled up his sleeve to the top of his forearm. Jin-hyuk saw the gigantic muscles. What muscles? He and his bodies were trained too, but it was first time seeing a human body so developed. Mumu put his hand on his chest again and pushed. It's no use. You aren't even using internal energy and just ignorantly pushing with strength. No one will take a Drrr. As soon as he was thinking, Yu Jin-hyuk, who wasn't supposed to move out of the circle, was pushed towards the wall at the end of the room in an instant. Flustered, he raised his energy to the maximum, but nothing worked. He stared at the floor blankly. The wooden boards on the floor where his feet was pushed were cracked and broken. Not being able to believe that, Yu Jin-hyuk opened his mouth. You? What are you?